Hello and welcome to Abundantly Minimal. My name is Sarah and thank you for joining me in yet another Minimalist Living 101 video. In this series, I'm sharing different mindset shifts and key actions or thought processes behind a minimalist lifestyle. And today we're talking about priorities and limits, which play a major role in our lives whether we realize them or not. There are 5 key limits that I'll be addressing. Talk about how you can shift these or adjust these based upon your priorities and give you some clear, actionable examples to help you. Let's jump in. Kicking off our discussion of limits, we must talk about time. Time is one of the biggest limits. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. So the question here is, how are you choosing to spend your time? Whether we realize it or not, the way we spend our time is a reflection of our priorities. We give more time to things that we prioritize more. And if we're not living an intentional or minimal lifestyle, we might be giving time or prioritizing things that aren't actually as important to us. To audit this in yourself, simply reflect about your actions during the day. Do these actions correspond with your values? For example, if you value family time, is that being reflected in the way you spend your time? If you're prioritizing your health, do you see that in the way you spend your time? If you prioritize self-development or a certain hobby of yours or interest, is that reflected in the way you spend your time? Ideally, we want these to be aligned, and if you are looking to make some changes, it's as simple as identifying the ways you're spending your time that don't align to your values and reducing that or limiting that. Second, let's talk about the limit of energy. Unlike time, where we all have the same 24 hours in the day, we don't necessarily all have the same amount of energy, but whatever amount of energy we have, we likely see different waves of energy within our own lives. Reflect about your energy levels. When do they rise or fall throughout the day? When do you feel most or least energetic? This is a limit because whatever amount of energy you have, sometimes you're not going to have as much energy, and energy ultimately helps us accomplish things or take different action. To prioritize our use of energy, we want to make sure that during these periods of peak energy, we are doing what matters most or the most important tasks. A great way to think about this is to accomplish the most challenging tasks during the time when you have your peak energy. I'm not sure if you have ever been working on something and maybe you know your peak hours when you're most productive or efficient or energetic, but you didn't get it done during that time or you didn't prioritize it during that time, and then you spend twice as long trying to work at not optimal hours for yourself to get something done that could have been much more efficient had you had more energy. I know in my own life that has happened to me many a time, but we can take action by prioritizing the most important tasks when we have the most energy to be able to get as much done as possible during that time, make our time more effective, work smarter, not harder, as well as maybe be more present during those specific times when you have more energy. On the flip side, we can make sure that during our periods of peak energy, we are not wasting our time with things that don't matter as much. For example, if you're best in the mornings and have the most energy to accomplish things in the mornings, don't get sucked into social media or maybe checking email at that time. If that's your peak time, jump into a more important project, and then maybe when your energy is decreasing, then you can focus on some of those more basic, simple tasks. The third limit I'll talk about today is money, and reflecting on how we choose to spend our money, where we choose to spend it, all of that. Now, money is a limiting factor that varies a lot depending on where someone lives, what their job is, their own level of personal privilege, their age. A lot of factors can go into this. So we all have a certain amount of money. And while there definitely is room for this to increase or decrease, in general, it is what it is right now. And with that, our money is a limited resource in the sense that we can't go beyond our means or live beyond our means. Or even if we technically can through the use of loans and credit cards, we obviously don't want to go overboard and we want to make intentional choices with our spending. But we can really think about, number one, what we choose to spend our money on, And number 2, where we choose to spend our money, because these choices matter. And just like the other things we've talked about, time and energy, it's so important that we prioritize where we are spending our money. First, it's important that we prioritize what we're spending our money on, whether that is something that's going to improve our lives or our health or promote whatever we value, such as family time, any of those things, or in the case of financial security or financial freedom, making sure that we prioritize saving or putting our money towards financial goals that are going to help us in the future. On the flip side, it's also important that we are not funding our impulse purchases. Of course, they can still happen from time to time, but taking a little extra time, being more intentional about what we are spending our money on or when we're spending our money is going to prevent future regrets or having too much clutter in your home. An additional priority to think about when it comes to spending and our money supply is thinking about where we're spending it. And although there's very many factors that go into this, such as access of different areas and someone's own personal financial stability or level of wealth, ideally, we are spending our money with companies and organizations that we personally believe in or that align to our values. A very easy example of this is with clothing. There is quite a range of clothing available, and ideally, if you are supporting environmental or social issues, then you probably don't want to support fast fashion brands and instead want to support more ethical brands. Of course, this is not always super straightforward and easy to do for many cases, as the fast fashion brands are much cheaper to purchase than the ethical brands because of the nature of how the workers are paid and that sort of thing. But I would encourage you to reflect about these purchases in your life and see how you can make a difference. One very specific example in my own life has to do with restaurant meals. Now, my husband Jake and I, we have definitely tried to scale back our out to eats and definitely not dining in at all anymore, but getting takeout or food pickup. And with that, we overall had done a pretty good job reducing that. Earlier in 2020, we did some no spends where we were not purchasing any of that out to eat. And while that was great because we saved a lot of money and it's healthier to eat at home in general, we realized that we wanted to support some of the businesses more in our area, and we could do that by getting takeout from them more regularly. And there's one restaurant in particular that we have decided to order from once a week. And it's an incredible restaurant. It's Black woman owned, it's a small business, it's a vegan restaurant. So these are all things I want to support financially. And so even though there were benefits at first when it just for us to save money and maybe eat healthier, just having more meals at home, by incorporating this restaurant as part of our weekly routine, our dollars are doing so much more. And those are all things that I want to give my money to. And it's like, heck yes, full tip, even though it's takeout. I want to make sure that this business can thrive for all the other benefits that come with it. So it's important for us to think about the kind of impact our money can have and how we can support the right kind of business that we want to see more of in the world. The next limit I'll be talking about here is space, the amount of space you have in your home. And with this, we all have certain amounts of space, whether you're in a smaller home or smaller apartment or a much larger home, maybe even with an additional storage unit or extra storage space that way. We all get to decide how we fill the space in our home, how much is there, how much we keep out, what the overall feel or aesthetic is like. We have a lot of control. And this is where a minimalist lifestyle can be very important, especially if we want to prioritize having a calm space, being able to access your items easily, not be overwhelmed by a high volume of clutter, have your space be more of a home rather than a storage unit. These are all different elements that can come along with a minimalist lifestyle. And if those are things that we care about, we can prioritize them by decluttering the excess that we have. We can prioritize them by not bringing in as many new purchases, really being aware of the inventory we're managing around our house, what we're keeping on hand, what's actually needed, what's adding value. And if we are prioritizing having more of this open space or prioritizing a more relaxed feel in our house, we're going to have to take a much more intentional look at our items and really help visualize what we want our space to be like, feel like, look like, and live more in alignment of that, especially as we make future choices related to clutter and stuff. The last limit I'll be talking about today is our attention. What do we choose to give our attention to? On the surface, attention might seem a little bit like energy, but it has to do with focus. Although there could be some examples where multitasking can work for some individuals, in general, we can only give our attention, our true attention, to one thing at a time. And we might be jumping between different tasks or different thoughts, but in general, at any given moment, what are you giving your attention to? For instance, right now, if you're watching this video, if you are focused on this video, you are giving your attention to this video. Or maybe you have this video on in the background while you're doing something else. So in that case, are you putting your attention on the video, or are you putting your attention on whatever else you're doing? Sometimes we get so caught up in our day-to-day life that we are not necessarily mindful of what is giving our attention. However, what we give our attention to matters a lot. While I personally don't have any of my own kids yet, I definitely observe parents and kid dynamics in different public situations. And even just a few weeks ago, I can't remember if I've shared this in a past video, but there was a girl riding her bike and her mom was with her, but her mom was on her phone. And the little girl was trying to get her mom's attention, and the mom didn't see it or didn't realize it until much later. That was an example of how she's, going for a bike ride with her daughter. You know, how awesome is that? But in that actual moment, the mom wasn't there present with her daughter, at least in the moment that we were walking by. Number one, I think kids realize when they are or are not receiving attention much more than maybe adults realize they do, as well as in that situation, that mom was showing her daughter that she prioritized her phone more than her daughter. Of course, I don't know what was going on in this person's life. Maybe there was something really stressful going on, and that was why they were on their phone. But it's important for us to think about what we are giving our attention to and if this is what matters. You know, maybe this person thought going on this bike ride that there was going to be some quality time with their child, but it turns out that their attention was divided, at least between their device and their daughter. So I encourage you to think about your attention, and I know sometimes I do still try to do more than I can. I might put, something on in the background and focus on a different task, but I'm always much more surprised, number one, how efficient I am when I'm giving all my attention to one thing, but also how meaningful that can be. It's also a way we can slow down a bit. We don't have to focus on being productive at every moment of the day. Sometimes it's nice to just sit, relax, really connect and talk to the people in your life, enjoy a hot beverage. All of these things, if we really allow ourselves to slow down and give our attention fully to these simple pleasures, I think you're going to get so much more out of it than if you were trying to do all the things. I hope this video was helpful thinking about different types of attention. If you have not checked out some of my past Minimalist Living 101 series, you will not want to miss out. I'm going to put some of them here on the screen, and they're also linked below. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, why not join us here at Abundantly Minimal? You can subscribe right up here. We'll see you next time. Bye.